Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun with Benzion. I got the sunglasses ready to go, just in case somebody asked me to leave this room. Someone came the other day and said, "Is this your private studio over here?" I said, "It's not so private if you could just walk in like that." um, I mean, no one really. It's a side room here in the shul. No one really uses it, so I use it. So in case someone kicks me out, I have my sunglasses prepared. Just let my shades down and be able to give the share in the sun, in the boiling sun. It's hot out here in Israel. Let's get to the Gemara. The Gemara on top of Gilman Aleph. The Gemara asks. The Gemara says, why? The Gemara already asked on that base. The Gemara asks, why does the Mishnah say Kinuya Kol Kinuya Kinudarim? It left out a part called Yodos Nedarim Kinudarim, and then it immediately talks about Yodos. Why do we talk about Kinuyim? So the Gemara answers, no, because it's special. Like the Gemara says in many places, when it is drasha, it's chavivale to the Tana. When we learn something out of drasha, exposition from the Torah, it doesn't really seemingly make sense. But the Torah says, nonetheless, right, we have an extra word somewhere, so therefore we learn Yodos Nedarim Kinudarim. So therefore we talked about that first before Kinuyim, which are Dal Raisa. Kinuyim are Dal Raisa. Kinuyim, although they're also Dal Raisa, Josh is also Dal Raisa from the Torah. However, it's more simple. It's just simple logic. It's a svara, right? The Gemara says it makes sense according to the Mandamar. Kinuyim is Lashon Nachrim. It's just like English, right? Saying the word korban in English, right? Sacrifice. This piece of meat is also. That would be the same thing as Kinuyim, which is a svara. That's not as dear. That's not as big of a chiddush. Therefore, you tell the chiddush versus the other. The Gemara brings a brisa in the middle of Gilman Aleph. The Gemara says, how do you know Yodos Nedarim Kinedarim? Where's the drasha? So the Gemara brings the pasuk, Ish ki yafi lindor neder nazir lahazir Hashem. And the Gemara darshan is nazir lahazir. Right? So the Gemara says, Tanya, nazir lahazir lasas kinuyin naziros kinaziros, v'yalos naziros kinaziros. You learn two things, seemingly, the brisa says, that one, if a kinoy of a naziros is like a naziros, right? If you said naziros, nazik, or naziach, a different language, that's acceptance of a naziros also. And also, yodos naziros, he said a partial lashon that I'm a nazir, like I see a nazir passing by, I say, hey, I'm going to be like him. So that's yodos naziros naziros. The Gemara will talk about that soon in the coming dapim. So that also is effective. And the Gemara says, because it says lindor neder, and the pasuk are makish nedarim to naziros. Right? Just like the zeros, yodos naziros naziros, also nedarim, yodos nedarim nedarim. So the Rishonim have a question over here. This brisa states something which seemingly is incorrect over here. We're learning out from the drasha, Nazir lahazir, kinuyin nazir nazir. The Gemara just said, no, it's not a drasha. It's Del Raisa. It's a Sfara Del Raisa. It's a logical thing with Del Raisa. Why is the brisa adding kol kinuyin nazir nazir? If we learn out of Nazir lahazir, we're learning two things out of it. Secondly, how can we learn two things out of the same thing? It's two different halachas. Kinuyim and yados are two different types of Nedarim or Naziros that are not the normal type of Naziros. How do you learn both things at the same pasuk? The Ran takes out the word Kinaziros. He deletes it from the Brisa. The Russian tells us that you can keep it, but it wasn't really meant to be. The Brisa really didn't mean to say it. It was just, a lot of times, the Brisa talks about Yodos and Kinuyim together. Mishnah talks about them together, but it really is not the right that. If you're like the Gemara said, it's Lashon Nachrim according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's Sfarim Midol Raisa, it logically makes sense. Sacrifice is the same thing as Korban. I have a different answer, and it's based on what the Gemara says on Gilmal and Beis, connected in a second. My answer is like this, is that the mechanism that Yodos Nedarim Nedarim, we need a drasha over here. Yodos Nedarim Nedarim, Yodos Naziros Naziros. Now the Yodos is when I say a partial lashon. I don't say the entire lashon. I don't say aser, the word aser. I don't say, what exactly I'm asking myself. It's sort of, I would say like an assumption. It's a chazaka that he's making in Naziros, but it's not clear cut. So normally when it comes to making an Isser over here, we're going to see that actually by konamos, by Nedarim, if you hold that you make the neder and you attach to a korban, there's a discussion whether there's me'ilah by konamos and all. There's actually, it becomes also like a korban almost, and then if you violate it, if you use it for nonsense, in the wrong way, you have to pay money. So you sort of need a proof in order to make something a neder or naziros. You need a proof. How you doing? You need a proof to make something a neder and a naziros. So a chazaka, that's the drasha chazaka. The Gemara says we assume that's what you meant. That's the drasha of nazir lahazir connected to lindor neder. That by nedarim by naziros, if you make a partial lashon, we assume that's what you meant. Now, I wouldn't say that Yados, even though it has the chalos, the effect of a neder, I wouldn't say it's called a maisa neder. It's not called an actual maisa neder, right? There's actually two psukim that tell you have to keep a neder. One is bal yachal dvar olav, that you shouldn't be meichel your words, which is your words are kadosh. And then kol yotze mipiv yasa, anything that comes out of your mouth, with Gemara actually says on Gimel and Beis, includes yados. You have to do anything that comes out of your mouth, even though it's not clear. So that's a chalos neder. So the essay of Nedarim applies to the chalos, and that's the difference. A full neder, where you say aser, or you connect to a korban. If you say fully, thank you. If you say fully, so that is a full neder, in both in the Maisa neder, it's a full language of a neder, and in the chalos neder. If you say yados, I think it's a partial neder, right? We assume it's a neder, so you don't have dibor, there's no bal yachal dvaram, which is suggesting over here, big chiddush. However, there would be kol yotzev maybe asa, like the Gemara says on Gimel and Beis, that also includes yados. So a different way of learning out yados, kol yotzev maybe asa. Even if it's not an actual language of a neder, nonetheless, it counts as a neder, and you have to do it, but you're not violating bal yachal dvaro because your words weren't exactly committing yourself to a neder. Now, kinui naziros kinazirus, yes, the Gemara is saying, but the Gemara learns kinui naziros kinazirus not from Nazir lahazir, not from the double language of Nazir lahazir, the drasha of Nazir lahazir. The Gemara learns it out like the Gemara says on Gimel and Beis. The Gemara says, where do you learn out nazirus chala al nazirus? If you hold a nazirus chala al nazirus, I make a nazirus, I say I'm a nazir, and then 10 minutes later I say I'm a nazir again. You can't make a nazirus on a nazirus, but maybe after the 30 days, the regular first nazirus is over, so the second statement is chal after 30 days. So there's a mandamar who says that. The Gemara says, where does he learn that out? So the Gemara says, Nazir lahazir. The Gemara says, actually learn Nazir lahazir. We learn that to tell you, yados naziros kinaziros. So the Gemara says, no, because he could have said Nazir lizor. Nazir, a Nazir, right, who took upon himself a naziros. Lahazir, where he's doing a verb, he's saying something explicitly. Lizor is sort of a half language, a half expression. So, back to Nazir lahazir, so the Gemara says, Shraminat Tarti, you learn two things from that. You can learn one, Yados Naziros Naziros, and two, Naziros Chal and Naziros. So let's go back to the Gemara on Daf Gimel with Aleph. So therefore, we have two real drashas coming out of this. One is Nazir Lahazir, which is a Nazir Lizor. That's double language, that's double expression. That's the drasha, which tells me Yados Naziros Naziros. Lizor is a half expression. I mistakenly made a statement that might take effect as a Naziros, but I don't have premeditated kavana to make an Naziros. And then lahazir is where lahazir, a nazir is expressing fully his language of naziros. So that's clear when a person takes I'm a nazir, and then he says clearly I'm a nazir a second time. It's clearly, the question is, it's definitely a maisa of a language, a clear language of naziros. The question is, does it take effect or not? So if you hold lahazir, tells me yes, it takes effect also, and that works me svara. That logically works because once the first naziros elapses, the second one has a makom to be chal, and therefore, also, just like you learn Naziros Chal and Naziros from the clear language of Lahazir, therefore we learn also, like the Bryce says, Kinuye Naziros Kinaziros, not learned out of the double language, not from the drasha, just because of Lahazir means a clear language, a clear expression of Naziros. And if you hold that Kinuyim is Lashon Nachramim, it's a non-Jewish language, it's like instead of saying Korban, you're saying sacrifice logically, if it's a clear Lashon expression of Naziros, I'm saying sacrifice in English, just translate, go on Google, translate English into Hebrew, it's a svara midoraisa. So when it said the Bryce says kinui naziros, that's learning it about the word lahazir. Nazir lizor, the double language, that expression is teaching me yados and naziros, and that explains why the Bryce mentions both called kinui naziros and yados and naziros. I think this is the right explanation. It explains a lot of big ideas in Masechtas Nedarim. If you didn't like that, I don't know how you didn't like this Gemara share. This is probably the best Iyun share you've ever heard until this date. Give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I mean, come on. Coolest Maggid share in the world. It's worth it just for that. See you in the next one.